Ella was only 17 when she arrived in Lagos from her small village in Ebonyi State. Her mother had begged Madame Joy, an influential society woman, to take her in as a househelp. The big city terrified Ella, but she carried hope in her heart that her life would somehow be better than the one she left behind. The mansion in Ikoyi where Madame Joy lived was unlike anything Ella had ever seen. The sparkling marble floors, the massive chandeliers, and the fleet of cars parked outside looked like something out of a dream. Ella's bare feet hesitated before stepping inside, almost afraid that the luxury might swallow her whole. Madame Joy, a fair-skinned woman in her 40s with a sharp tongue, wasted no time reminding Ella of her place. "You're here to work, not to play," she said, her red lips curling into a thin smile. Her husband, Mr. Gabriel, barely acknowledged Ella's presence, though his eyes lingered on her for longer than necessary. Ella was given a small, windowless room in the servants' quarters. The space was barely enough for a bed and a wooden stool, yet Ella was grateful. She whispered a prayer that night, promising herself that no matter how hard the work became, she would endure it. But what Ella did not know was that her journey in that house would soon lead her into the center of scandal, betrayal, and shocking twists that would forever change her destiny. Ella quickly proved herself hardworking, scrubbing the marble floors until they sparkled and cooking meals to Madame Joy's high standards. But what unsettled her was the way Mr. Gabriel, a tall, dark-skinned businessman with a calm voice, always seemed to appear when she was alone. He would watch her intently while she served his meals. Sometimes he would ask her personal questions. "Do you have a boyfriend back in your village? Or what do you dream of, Ella?" His tone was gentle, but his eyes carried something heavier. First, Ella ignored it, convinced she was imagining things. But one evening, while clearing the dining table, she felt his hand brush against hers. She froze, unsure whether to pull back or pretend it never happened. He only smiled and said, "You're growing into a fine young woman." Madame Joy remained oblivious, too consumed with her high society gatherings and shopping trips. Ella began to dread being left alone with Mr. Gabriel, yet a small part of her felt the dangerous pull of attention she had never experienced before. In the stillness of the night, Ella wondered if she was walking into something she could not escape. One Saturday evening, Madame Joy threw a lavish party for her wealthy friends. Ella worked tirelessly, running trays of champagne and finger foods to the guests. She marveled at the glamorous women in sequin dresses and the men in tailored suits. But she felt the sting of humiliation when Madame Joy shouted at her in front of the guests for spilling a few drops of wine on the floor. "You clumsy village rat," Joy hissed. Laughter followed from a few of the women, and Ella's face burned with shame. Mr. Gabriel, however, came to her defense. "Joy, that's enough. It was just a spill." His words silenced the room briefly, and Madame Joy forced a laugh, waving it off. But Ella noticed how his gaze lingered on her even as the music resumed. Later that night, while Ella cleared dishes in the kitchen, Mr. Gabriel walked in. He touched her hand gently, whispering, "Don't let her break you. You're stronger than you think." For the first time, Ella looked into his eyes and saw not just desire but something more dangerous, possibility. The tension between Ella and Mr. Gabriel grew heavier with each passing day. He found excuses to call her into his study or linger near the kitchen when she was working. One afternoon, when Madame Joy had gone shopping, Gabriel found Ella in the library dusting shelves. He stood close, his cologne filling the air, and whispered, "Do you ever think of me, Ella?" She froze, unsure how to answer. Before she could speak, his lips were on hers. Kiss was brief but scorching, leaving Ella trembling. She pulled away quickly, whispering, "This is wrong." But his eyes told her it was only the beginning. 4 days afterward, Ella avoided him, afraid of what she felt. Yet every night she lay in bed thinking about the kiss, about the way her heart raced when he looked at her. A dangerous seed had been planted, one that neither of them could stop from growing. Didn't take long before Madame Joy began to suspect something. She noticed the way her husband's eyes followed Ella, and the way Ella avoided meeting his gaze in her presence. One evening, Joy stormed into the kitchen, cornering Ella. Don't think I don't see what's happening, she snapped. Stay away from my husband or I'll send you back to that wretched village of yours. Ella trembled, swearing she had done nothing. But deep down she knew the warning was too late. The desire had already crossed the line. Later that night, Mr. Gabriel confronted his wife about her cruelty to Ella. The fight escalated, voices echoing through the mansion. Ella overheard her name more than once and pressed her hands to her ears, wishing she could disappear. But what none of them knew was that the scandal about to erupt would not just destroy a marriage, it would rewrite Ella's life completely. Despite Madame Joy's warning, Ella and Mr. Gabriel's forbidden connection only deepened. He would slip into the servants' quarters late at night, whispering promises of a better life. At first Ella resisted, but loneliness and curiosity slowly drew her into his arms. The secrecy excited them both. Gabriel told Ella she was different from all the Lagos society women, pure, unspoiled, and real. Ella blushed at his words, but guilt gnawed at her every time she thought of Madame Joy. Each stolen moment became riskier. They met in the library, in the garden, sometimes even in Gabriel's car parked outside the mansion. Ella feared the house staff would notice, but the thrill made it hard to stop. Gabriel showered her with gifts, perfumes, clothes, even jewelry. For the first time, Ella saw herself as more than just a maid. Yet she also knew this dangerous path could end in disaster. And disaster came sooner than she imagined. Madame Joy's instincts sharpened. She noticed Gabriel's sudden generosity toward Ella, the new clothes and the secret smiles exchanged when they thought no one was watching. She began setting traps, sending Ella to deliver meals to Gabriel, then barging in unexpectedly. She checked Ella's room at night, sniffing for traces of expensive perfume. Each time she found nothing, but her rage grew. Ella lived in fear, sleeping lightly and waking at every sound, terrified Joy might catch them. Gabriel, however, grew bolder, assuring Ella that Joy is too busy with her society life to prove anything. But Madame Joy was a woman who hated losing. She vowed that if Ella dared cross the line, she would make her regret ever stepping into her house. And so the battle lines were drawn. The day of betrayal came when one of the drivers, Cunnel, overheard Ella and Gabriel whispering in the garden. Cunnel had always envied Ella's beauty and despised the attention she got. He wasted no time running to Madame Joy, painting Ella as a seductress who had bewitched her husband. "Madam, na this girl she day sleep with Oga," Cunnel whispered with glee. Joy's fury exploded. That night, she slapped Ella across the face, calling her a village harlot. Gabriel rushed in to protect Ella, but the damage was done. The household divided. Some servants sided with Madame Joy, others secretly pitted Ella. Tension filled the air like smoke. For Ella, the shame cut deep, but her anger began to grow. She vowed she would never return to her village a disgraced girl. In the midst of the chaos, Gabriel's younger brother, Tund, arrived from abroad. He was younger, flashier, and full of charm. Unlike Gabriel, Tund didn't hide his interest in Ella. At first Ella avoided him, but Tund offered her something Gabriel never had, open admiration without secrecy. He teased her, complimented her cooking, and even slipped her his phone number. When Joy noticed Tund's behavior, she laughed cruelly. "So now you want my husband's brother too?" Shameless girl. But she didn't realize Ella was beginning to see Tund as an escape route. Late one night, Tund cornered Ella in the kitchen and whispered, "Leave Gabriel. He's old, controlling. With me, you'll have the world." For the first time, Ella questioned her loyalty to Gabriel. Just as Ella thought she could balance the dangerous game, fate intervened. She missed her period. Once, twice. Fear gripped her as she realized she was pregnant. Her heart pounded with panic. Whose child was it? Gabriel's or possibly Tund's? The timing blurred in her mind. She wept quietly in her small room, knowing the truth could destroy her. When Gabriel found out, he was overjoyed. "This is our blessing, Ella. Don't worry, I'll take care of you." His confidence only fueled her dread. But Madame Joy soon discovered the truth when she noticed Ella's growing belly. The mansion erupted in chaos. Joy screamed, Gabriel defended Ella, and the servants whispered behind doors. Ella's secret had finally become impossible to hide. Madame Joy, humiliated beyond measure, ordered Ella out of the house. "Pack your things and go back to your mud hut. You'll never raise that bastard here." Gabriel tried to stop her, but Joy called her lawyer and threatened divorce. The scandal would destroy his business empire if the story went public. With no choice, Gabriel gave Ella money and arranged for her to stay in a small apartment in Surrey. It was a far cry from the mansion, but at least it gave her safety. Ella cried for days, feeling abandoned. Yet deep down, she also felt a new fire. She was carrying a life, and she would fight for her child's future. But she was far from done with the Gabriel household. Tund found out about Ella's situation and saw it as an opportunity. He visited her apartment, bringing expensive gifts and whispering promises. Unlike Gabriel, Tund offered her freedom, not secrecy. "I'll marry you, Ella. I'll raise the child as mine, whether or not it's Gabriel's." Ella was torn. Gabriel had risked everything for her, but Tund offered her a future without fear of Madame Joy. The attraction between Ella and Tund grew undeniable. One night, they gave in to their desires. Ella woke up the next morning racked with guilt, but Tund only smiled, saying, "Now you belong to me too." Ella realized she was caught in a love triangle with no escape. Madame Joy couldn't sleep. The humiliation of her husband impregnating a maid haunted her every waking moment. She hired private investigators to dig into Ella's life, determined to destroy her completely. Soon, pictures surfaced of Tund sneaking into Ella's apartment. Joy laughed bitterly. "So the whore is playing both brothers? Perfect. I'll use this against them." She arranged a society gathering where she casually leaked the scandal. By the end of the night, Lagos elite buzzed with gossip about the maid who trapped the two brothers of one of the wealthiest families. Gabriel was furious, Tund was embarrassed, but Ella? She found herself becoming infamous, her name whispered in places she had never dreamed. And oddly enough, that power thrilled her. As Lagos society gossiped, Ella saw a new opportunity. People now recognized her, and wealthy men began offering her support. Instead of shrinking from the scandal, she leaned into it. She bought new clothes, styled her hair differently, and carried herself with confidence. No longer a mere maid, Ella started attending parties with Tund, who flaunted her proudly despite his brother's fury. At one event, she met a famous socialite who whispered, "Girl, don't waste your youth on these brothers. Play the game right, you can own Lagos." Ella realized she was transforming. She wasn't just a victim of circumstance anymore, she was learning to wield power. But with power came enemies, and Madame Joy was only getting started. Gabriel, humiliated by his wife and betrayed by his brother, spiraled into desperation. His business partners began pulling away, worried the scandal would taint them. Despite everything, he couldn't let Ella go. He began visiting her secretly, begging her to come back. "I'll leave Joy, I swear. You and the baby will be my only family." Ella, however, was no longer the timid maid. She laughed bitterly. "You had your chance, Gabriel. Now I decide my future." For the first time in his life, Gabriel realized he was no longer in control. He began plotting drastic measures to win Ella back. And his desperation would soon push him to dangerous extremes. As Ella's belly grew, the question of paternity became unavoidable. Was the child Gabriel's or Tund's? Madame Joy insisted on a DNA test, eager to expose Ella once and for all. Gabriel resisted, but eventually the pressure became unbearable. The results came back shocking. Neither Gabriel nor Tund was the father. Ella was stunned. She retraced her steps and remembered one drunken night months ago with Connell, the driver who had betrayed her. The revelation rocked the household. Gabriel collapsed in disbelief, Tund raged at her betrayal, and Madame Joy laughed until tears rolled down her cheeks. Ella stood frozen, realizing her entire world had just shifted. News of the DNA scandal spread quickly. Ella, once seen as a cunning seductress, was now ridiculed as a liar who trapped herself. Tund abandoned her, Gabriel cut her off, and Lagos society that once whispered her name now mocked her openly. She was evicted from her Surelier apartment and left with nothing but a few clothes and her unborn child. For weeks, Ella lived in misery, hiding from the shame. But deep inside, her fire never died. She swore she would rise again, no matter what, and fate soon handed her the chance. One rainy evening, Ella met Chaik, a wealthy young businessman with a reputation for chasing scandalous women. He spotted her at a bar, pregnant and distraught, and saw an opportunity. Instead of mocking her, Chaik treated her with kindness. He offered her a place to stay and slowly began drawing her into his luxurious lifestyle. Unlike Gabriel or Tund, Chaik didn't care about her past. In fact, he found her scandal appealing. Lagos loves drama, Ella. You are drama. That's power. Ella, exhausted and desperate, leaned into his world. For the first time, she felt truly safe. But Chaik wasn't as innocent as he appeared. Chaik revealed his true nature soon enough. He was deep in shady deals, laundering money through nightclubs and real estate. Ella discovered his secret one night when she overheard a violent argument between him and his associates. First, she wanted to run, but Chaik caught her. Instead of silencing her, he smiled and said, "Now you're part of this too. Stay loyal and you'll never be poor again." Ella realized she was trapped once more, but this time in a world far darker than she had ever imagined. And strangely, part of her enjoyed the danger. Months passed, and Ella gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Destiny, believing he symbolized her second chance at life. With Chaik's backing, Ella transformed completely. She launched a boutique in Lekki, quickly gaining attention for her bold fashion sense and fearless personality. Her rise was meteoric. Society that once mocked her now invited her to events, journalists praised her resilience, and women secretly envied her strength. Ella had finally become Madame Ella, no longer a househelp but a force to be reckoned with. Yet deep down she knew everything she had was built on fragile ground. Out of nowhere, Gabriel resurfaced, his once booming empire now crumbling. He begged Ella for forgiveness, claiming he still loved her. He offered to marry her, insisting they could rebuild together. Ella laughed bitterly. "You only come back now because you've lost everything." Still, Gabriel wouldn't give up. He began showing up at her boutique, sending gifts, even trying to bond with her son Destiny. Chaik grew furious. "That man is poison. If he doesn't stay away, I'll make him disappear." Ella found herself once again caught between dangerous men. Chaik, however, wasn't so lucky. The government seized his properties, and his rivals hunted him down. One night, he fled Lagos, leaving Ella and Destiny behind. Ella, instead of despairing, seized control of the boutique and rebranded it under her own name. With the sympathy of the public and her fearless attitude, her business flourished. Gabriel tried again to win her back, but Ella publicly humiliated him, calling him a weak man who hides behind wealth. Clip went viral, and her fame skyrocketed. Madame Joy seethed with rage, but even she couldn't stop Ella anymore. Ella had survived everything, scandal, betrayal, and heartbreak, and was stronger than ever. Years later, Ella sat in her Lekki mansion, watching Destiny play in the garden. The girl who once scrubbed floors was now one of Lagos' most talked-about women. Her boutique had expanded into a fashion empire, and she was invited to international events. Journalists called her Madame Ella, the woman who turned scandal into power. When asked about her past, she simply smiled. "Every mistake was a step to where I am today. Never underestimate a village girl." Madame Joy faded into obscurity, Gabriel lived a quiet life, and Tund disappeared abroad. But Ella? She thrived. From maid to madame, her story became legend in Lagos society, proof that even the lowest beginnings could lead to the highest peaks.